You know, sometimes I have to make exceptions for things. I can tolerate sometimes the bad in a video game because overall the game is good, all things considered. I value gameplay over everything else as a rule. After all, these things are video games. Gameplay, you know? With that being said, sometimes I'm met with anomalies. Games that break that rule. They're not many. In fact, I could count in one hand the games where this applies. They're pretty unique games that allow me to overlook their major flaws, and I still am able to enjoy them anyway. A game like Killer 7, for instance, which has a very simple gameplay loop, where movement is on rails and you shoot enemies that walk towards you before they can explode in your face. It's a very simple concept, but this game is one such anomaly because its atmosphere is so unique, and it's such a captivatingly weird game. It's surrealist, yet grounded enough that it really held my attention. Now, I'm fully aware that games like this are not popular for a reason. For gameplay, the most important part is not great. They're unconventional. Mostly they're there to accompany the story, being just competent enough not to fall into tortured territory unlike movie games such as the Metal Gear Solid saga or every modern Sony main title. So I'm not gonna lambast anyone who thinks games like this are boring. They're cult anomalies for a reason, as I've said. Now, the game that I want to talk about in this video that is like this is Pathologic 2. Something about it stands out to me and makes it a one-of-a-kind product. The atmosphere, plot, and setting are quite strong, but the way it merges its gameplay with these elements also stands out. The game reminds me a bit of Silent Hill 2 in that its elements are almost all parts of a unified vision, much like how the game puts you in situations that make you think like the protagonist James. In Pathologic 2, the atmosphere is manifested in gameplay mechanics as well. The setting intermingles with the gameplay and plot and so on and so forth. Hopefully I'll clarify what I mean. And no, I haven't played Pathologic 1. I only dabbled with it briefly long ago, but I don't think it matters because Pathologic 2 isn't a sequel or a remake. It's more of a reimagining. You don't need to play Pathologic 1 to play 2 at all, and I imagine the same is true for 3. So with that out of the way, on to the video. So what even is this game about? Its genre is pretty hard to define. It has a little bit of horror, a little immersive sim, some RPG elements, a little open world. It's not a game that tries to do everything and ends up shallow and without direction, like say Crimson Desert, but it's hard to pinpoint which genre it belongs to. You could call it experimental for all I care, because it has a specific scope and purpose that's not traditional. So if I had to summarize it in a few words, I'd say that Pathologic 2 is the evolution of the point-and-click genre. It's a horror/thriller adventure with a setting similar to Twin Peaks, a time mechanic like Majora's Mask, with the atmosphere of the Stalker games, and the incomprehensible horror of H.P. Lovecraft. But the thing that defines this game in my eyes is how brutally difficult it is, and how there's zero hand-holding, but not in an unfair way. I don't think difficulty equals quality, but when a game is tough but fair, I appreciate it. The first rodeo I had with this game, I failed hard because I didn't take it seriously. I thought, this is just another game. I'll make it work somehow. But no, this game requires you to think and plan and be smart, because your resources and time, they're limited, and you have to be very smart with how you manage them. And that culminates in its time mechanic. This makes or breaks the game for a lot of people. For me, being a Majora's Mask enjoyer, it fits like a glove. Much like in that game, here you're on a timer. You have a limited amount of time to survive and do all you can before the end inevitably comes. But unlike in Zelda, you can't turn back time, slow it down, or do whatever. No, you only have one shot, and if you screw up too much, you can botch your playthrough irreparably. That's how unconventional this game is. Well, how so? Well, because in this game, each time you die, you get a permanent debuff. These debuffs vary from death to death, but the most common is your max health gets permanently lowered. So each time you die, the game gets tougher and tougher until it becomes impossible to progress. That's when you fall into a death loop, All your meters, your health, your exhaustion meter, your hunger and thirst meters become so tiny that you die shortly after respawning. This is the type of game it is. It's brutal, it doesn't hold your hand at all, and it requires your full undivided attention because each mistake you make has a great cost. Do you have a better picture now of why this game isn't popular but a cult classic? It is designed to be either loved or hated with no in between. If you don't like the pressure of a timer, you'll hate this game, but if you do, you'll most likely love it. And that's not the only polarizing element it has. But in order to better understand it, we need to know about the plot, so let's check that out. Now, a quick disclaimer. Unfortunately, dear viewer, I have to talk about these three things all together: gameplay, plot, and setting, because they're all intermingled. So if you don't want spoilers, you should play the game first before watching. I'll progressively reveal more and more stuff about the game in the same order that these things are revealed in game, so if you become interested in it, you can stop watching at any point you like and play before watching the rest of the video so it doesn't ruin the rest of the experience for you. I'll try not to spoil too much, to keep things mysterious, you know. But anyway, Pathologic 2 is a game about a small nameless town that's being ravaged by a plague called the Sand Pest. You play as Artemi Bura, known as the Haruspics, which means someone who practices divination through examining dead animals' entrails.
What the fuck?
Who was born and raised in this town by his father, Isidore, but left to the big city to study and become a surgeon. The thing is, when the game starts, in the prologue, you start at the end of the game. You get to see what became of the town as you failed to save it. Everybody's dead. The ones who aren't dead are being rounded up and shot. Some burned alive by the military that was dispatched to cull the town before this disease can spread even further. Reminds you of anything?
This entire city must be purged.
But you are given the opportunity by this immortal entity, conspicuously named Mark Immortal, who gives off heavy G-Man vibes, to try again, so you're sent back in time 12 days earlier, basically. Already a young adult, Buras summoned back to the town by a distressing letter from his father, calling him back for help as something very bad was about to happen. And so you arrive at the town, taking quite literally the last train to it after a series of ominous dreams prophesizing your fate. And as soon as you arrive, you're greeted by three guys who attempt to rob you, and so you end up killing them in self-defense. It turns out that someone very important has been murdered in the town earlier before your arrival, when everybody is up in arms about it, looking for someone to blame. And so after that shit happens, unfortunately for you, as you're the sole new arrival, aside from one mysterious individual who rode the train with you, who may or may not even be human, because they suspect you killed the three people at the train station, and murder in this town is an extreme taboo, they somehow think that the outsider, you, had something to do with everything. And so the first thing you do is you head to your father's house, but it turns out that he's the one who's been murdered. He was one of the two murder victims that happened early in that day. Burak's father, Isidore, being dead is a big deal not just to him, but he was also a father figure to pretty much everyone in town, so it explains why everyone is losing their minds over it. Since his murder's circumstances are unexplainable, he was murdered inside his own house. No one broke into or escaped from afterwards with no evidence left whatsoever. A perfect crime, basically. Everyone starts to look for perpetrators. Lots of innocents are lynched on the streets and people are quick to jump to conclusions, to the point where superstition comes into play. This game has a reputation system. Each district of the town has its own reputation meter. If your reputation is high, you're allowed to trade with most NPCs. They help you if you're being attacked and they let you inside their buildings. But if your reputation is too low and you're hated, if you've been hurting people or stealing too much, for instance, you know, doing some naughty things like punching kids to death, you know, then you'll be ostracized and attacked even in the streets. You piece of shit. You piece of shit. Boom. So when you arrive in the first day, because of all this suspicion, your reputation quickly falls off a cliff, and you have to avoid the main streets basically, lest you'll be attacked like I was here. Later, an important character fixes your reputation for you, but your father's killer is still at large. Again, just like in Twin Peaks, whose plot revolves around finding the killer of Laura Palmer. Here in Pathologic 2, one of the main objectives is to find your father's killer, who, just like in that show, could be a human or perhaps more than human. Who knows? I don't want to spoil that. A lot of the native women in this town, the herb brides as they're called, are accused of being a shabnak. And excuse my pronunciation of these names. This game has a fictional language that's spoken by the natives, which has elements of Mongolian in it. So I have no clue how to pronounce some of the strange words you're gonna be hearing throughout this video. But anyway, the Shabna is a creature of legend, a golem spawned from the earth that disguises itself as a female human and murders people. So considering the circumstances of the murders, the townsfolk burn some women alive thinking they are these creatures, which on one hand is pretty fucked up, but on the other it shows how base the townsfolk are, because they do not tolerate murder. It is a complete taboo, as you would expect from a small village with no history of crime. And this is one of the most interesting parts of this game's setting. The town, it's a desolate place. The only means to reach it is through train, which is also the way supplies are delivered. It's located far out on the steppe, and a lot of native folk live in it. Burak himself was raised as one of them, so he knows the local steppe language. These native folk are highly superstitious, and this town is enveloped in a great deal of mysticism. It feels a lot like Twin Peaks, how there's something more to the town, something dark and ancient. So if you're a Twin Peaks enjoyer, this game really hits the spot. The natives remind me a lot of Deputy Hawk from that show, a Native American who knows a lot about the mysticism of the region and who's familiar with these supernatural elements of the town. This native woman called Aspity, who serves a sort of a mother figure to Burak, reminds me of Margaret, the log lady, someone who has a lot of knowledge about the supernatural things, speaks in riddles and acts as sort of a prophet. So there are plenty of parallels to draw with that show. Deadly Premonition is not the only game that drew a lot of inspiration from Twin Peaks. In much the same way as that show, the Pathologic town is also enshrouded in weirdness. There are many mysterious key personalities and landmarks, like the Polyhedron, a mysterious structure built by the town's eccentric architect Peter Stamatin, an impossible structure that should not be able to stand, and it has the property of entrancing the town's children to abandon their families and go all live inside it. There are also the dormitories, the massive brutalist buildings that serve as the dormitories for the town's workers, right next to the abattoir, that feel completely out of place aesthetically and are pretty hard to access, but they hide something horrific inside. It's one of the scariest places in the game, straight out of Silent Hill. These key locations are reminiscent of the key locations in Twin Peaks, such as the Roadhouse and the Great Northern Hotel, which are places where strange activity is at its highest. This is an underappreciated trope of horror, I feel. And it's a good opportunity to create build-up. The way this game builds up these places is much like how I've already said in some other videos covering games like Silent Hill. You hear gossip about the factory and how something happened there, which may be the cause of the plague. The abattoir, this massive structure that resembles a human heart in the map, looks like a completely alien landmark, and it's one of the hardest places to access, so before you even get there, your mind spins imagining what sort of horrific things you'll find in a place that looks like this. So while you can't get there and see for yourself, these rumors make you imagine what sort of horrors you'll meet when you actually get to explore the place. One thing this game does, which merges themes with its gameplay and could be called a little bit sadistic, is how time is always working against you. The town, it is designed in a way that makes you waste a lot of time. Places are hard to reach, meaning sometimes you're forced to traverse in super roundabout ways. For instance, here, where you could normally just jump over these rocks and get up there, no, you're made to run all the way down here if you want to get to your destination up there. It is panic-inducing because in this game there are many situations where you'll find yourself almost out of time before the day ends or some major event happens, and you want to reach your destination as quick as possible, but the game has you go through this, which increases the panic. It is a clever way to integrate the time mechanic with the level design, and as you progress through the game, the later days, they become shorter. Time starts to go by faster. At the same time that the tasks you need to complete become more numerous. The game, as it goes on, it starts to really ramp up the pressure on the player in a way that I haven't seen any other game do. So it turns out that there was an outbreak of this plague 5 years prior to the game's events, and Murat's father Isidore had a hand in stopping it. And now the plague is back, and it's up to you to find a way to save as many people as you can. Like a lot of things in this town, the plague is also a supernatural entity. The black suit in the air roams the town inside and outside buildings and chases you around sometimes. Getting infected is a terrible thing, for there is no known cure for this pest, the only one being a panacea of sorts made from grinding a bunch of assorted pills together. Nobody knows how to consistently produce this cure, so it's not even acknowledged as a viable option to solve the calamity. On the second day after you get the key to your father's house back from the authorities, as it is a crime scene, you visit the house again and you see this. Wait.
You can hear the rats in the walls.
Yeah, whatever you say. Yeah, like, look at this shit. It's the plague. No, I'm not fucking with that. So it seems like your father's house is a major hotspot, if not the place where the plague began. What happened there? What was your father doing prior to your arrival? You played this game to unravel these mysteries. After you exit the house, walking outside, you can see this weird red mold taking over the house and the nearby ones as well, and the concerned townsfolk gathering to look at it. I like this because the player knows more than the townsfolk at this point. The fact the player is spoiled intentionally what the fate of the town is in the beginning makes this creepy to me. It ties with why I like horror movies and indulge in shitty found footage ones from time to time. The appeal of horror movies to me is not the ending, nor the scares, nor the monsters, but learning how things went wrong, the way the situation develops for the worse. The key moments, you know, like in the Blair Witch, how each night becomes progressively worse and worse, or earlier how the three characters cross the threshold demarked by the stone piles, just like it's described in Genesis in the Bible, is a key moment that pretty much seals the fate of the crew. In this game you can see how things start, how they could have been avoided, and so this game is heavy on player choice and exploration. There's a shit ton of things you can see, too much for one playthrough. Depending on which plot threads you decide to explore, things can go wrong faster or slower. And so at some point the authorities realize this plague is a big deal and announce a state of emergency in town. You're summoned to the town hall, and the way this moment is done is pretty unnerving. The reflections, which are one of the surreal elements of this game, there are these little dark fellas with the white masks, which are something only the player can see. Nobody else can see them. They point down the way you have to go, as if announcing the horrible, unavoidable fate the player has no choice but to face. This is the moment shit gets real. From this point onwards, several different mechanics are introduced. The town's theater gets turned into a makeshift sick ward you have to attend daily to treat the infected people, and you're paid in money and food for your services. Several different districts become quarantined, and in them you can find a lot of people lying down dying on the streets, and you can choose to help them if you may, but they're not important characters characters, so it might not be a good idea to waste your resources on them. Also, from this point onwards, every major NPC you meet, the ones that Burak logs in his people screen, have a chance to become infected at the end of each day. If they do get infected, they now have a chance of dying at the end of the day. Whether they die or not depends on how well you do your job of treating them. Each day that passes, you're forced to watch as each infected character dangles between life and death, with only luck determining whether they survive another day or not. And if they die, the options you have to progress the plot become more and more limited. This game was made for several playthroughs, therefore, and it's impossible to save everyone. Unless you use cheats, perhaps. Not sure if those exist for this game. The gameplay becomes brutal from this point, as the trains that come to resupply the town with provisions have stopped due to the war that's going on out there. The food in town becomes scarce. Each day the price of groceries increases brutally, so stocking up on supplies in the first 3 days is a must. Furthermore, the water, which you absolutely need to survive and be able to have a full stamina bar, and which you get from water barrels and fountains strewn throughout the town, as the Gorkon River's water is heavily toxic, well, those things, they also become contaminated over time. So all your resources, from food to water to medicine, they become more and more scarce over time. And again, each time you die in this game, your health bar gets smaller, your hunger bar gets smaller, you lose something permanently each time, so the further you get, the harder the game becomes. Honestly, at some points I found myself having to stop playing, as I had to stop and think and plan what to do next in order to manage all my resources and be able to just barely survive another day. Although this game might be a little extreme in that regard, still, this is how you do inventory and resource management in a horror game. It's not about putting an infinite chest with infinite space that you can store all your items in and then limit your inventory to 6 or 8 slots and then call it a day. No, that's stupid, because then all you have to do is keep running back and forth and you'll be able to manage. No, the important part of inventory management is resource scarcity. That's what requires you to use your noggin and enhances the feeling of being in a pinch in horror games. So as you play, you get to know more about the townsfolk. You learn more and more about the people you're helping, the key individuals in town, such as the 3 big families, the Saburovs, the Kanes, and the Olgimskis. You get to know and help your 3 childhood friends, Lara, Stah, and Bad Grief. The mysterious medium, Grace. The kind of Grace that doesn't stutter every word out of her mouth.
I'm Grace. It's okay. We're not infected. I think so.
The kids of Notkin's gang, which have some of the most interesting quest lines in the game, as well as many other key figures, including the Bachelor and the Changeling, the 2 other characters you were able to play as in Pathologic 1, who are also in town trying to find their own way to solve this calamity. And all these people you can help, it's very reminiscent of Majora's Mask, how you can help people of Clocktown as their impending doom approaches. In this game, you can do the same thing. And all these things are organized in your journal, where you can see a mental map of all the tasks you can do, the ones that you have failed to complete as you ran out of time, all in all. And there's a shit ton of things to do. Some of these threads can get pretty creepy. One of my favorite threads is one where you have the option to either help a kid who snitched on Notkin's gang, or you can side with Notkin to judge the traitor, you know. And if you decide to do so, spoiler, what happens is, as punishment, the kids, they throw that traitor down a well. That is more dangerous than it sounds, because in this town, there's something wrong with the ground itself. You don't mess with the ground. It's an extreme taboo. You don't dig holes, you don't dig wells. It's absolutely forbidden. Except when Burak feels like doing it for a bunch of kids, because they have to bury their remaining innocence actions or something like that. And so when the kids do this to the poor kid they consider a traitor, what happens to the kid is he basically goes insane. He's kind of lobotomized. Whatever he saw down there completely broke his mind. It's pretty sad having to see these kids go through all this shit as the town goes down in flames, or rather in sickness. It's pretty harrowing stuff. And in another one of my favorite threads, you get to explore this house with Notkin because he claims that death has overtaken the house. And so you go in there with him to investigate. And yes, some really weird shit happens inside. You get locked in as these weird stains start to appear on the walls. Shit that looks like distorted faces that infect you with the plague if you get too close. And to escape the house, you gotta light up all the candles inside the house. So it's a pretty fucking creepy and panic-inducing moment. This game can get really fucking scary at points. I don't want to make this video too long, but this is the type of thing this game offers. There's even more eerie shit that happens later on, and people's lives are depending on the decisions you take, which threads you decide to explore, which people you decide to look into, and depending on who you choose, it could have dire consequences to the townsfolk. Even the children, the important children characters, can die, and there's no way for you to know in advance if your actions are gonna result in that. There's one quest line, quote unquote, in particular, which creeped the hell out of me, in which you have to choose whether to meet this little girl's friend, which sounds like an imaginary friend, but it sounds real as well. And me having listened to a lot of imaginary friend horror stories, the shit creeped me out. And if you do, something snatches her away and kills her, depending on what you do, out in the middle of fucking nowhere, which is where you meet this friend, quote unquote. This game goes from weird to eerie to scary in ways that are pretty damn well executed. But unfortunately, there are some negatives to this game, because as I've said, this game is a love it or hate it product. There's a lot of text in this game. There's a lot of dialogue, probably more than in the Witcher games. So if you're not into the whole reading stuff in video games, then this game is probably not gonna do it for you. To play this game, you have to let yourself get invested in the setting and the people in it. Otherwise, it's just like reading a book you're not interested in. The sheer difficulty this game provides could also be a filter, as the intended difficulty is the hardest one. The game, when it launched, it only had this difficulty, but they patched in easier difficulties later because it was just that tough. And again, if you die too much, you're not allowed to load a previous save. No, you die, you get your debuff, there's no escape. You could try to Alt F4 if you can foresee you're about to die, but that's also not the intended way to play. Because if you try to do that after your death triggers, the game will know that you tried to cheat, and it won't matter. The most that will achieve is getting you called out by Mark Immortal once you boot the game again, and you'll suffer the debuffs. This game is brutal. It doesn't pull any punches. Anyone can die. Any of the characters you meet can die. And so that's the basic gist of it. There's so much pressure on you from managing all your different stat bars, from health to hunger to thirst to exhaustion. You barely get any time to sleep, yet you get exhausted anyway. So there's not much point in going over the later events of the game. You just have to play for yourself and see what happens, just so it doesn't seem like I'm only glazing it. One other problem this game has is that it's pretty badly optimized. Performance takes a hit in some places. Weirdly, especially when you're inside buildings, the game performs exceptionally worse, and many of the townsfolk in this game look the same as each other. There are a lot of people, but not enough different models for them. Plus, the prologue can be a bit of a drag, especially because it serves as sort of a tutorial, but you can't skip it unless you download a mod that skips the prologue for you. Considering how cruelly hard this game can be, forcing you to play the prologue each time you start over can be pretty damn annoying and kill the replayability, you know? Another thing that I have to praise in this game is the sound design. I don't know if Ice Pick Lodge will do well with Darkwood 2, but if they still have the same mindset from back when they made Pathologic 2, then that game's sound design should be good too, but we'll only know when it's out, so I'll hold my horses for now. Pathologic 2's soundscape is very surreal. Each district has its own ambience track. I won't lie though, since each district looks pretty much the same, even though they have their own ambience, the separation of environments is not as stark. But anyway, some of these ambient loops, they are reminiscent of a ticking clock, reminding the player at all times that their time is running out. Sometimes it sounds like heavy breathing, akin to a sick patient dying of an illness at the hospital, an illness like the plague. There are many disembodied sound effects like trash cans falling over and ghostly cats meowing next to you. Now that we disturbed the fucking ground. Even though there are no cats anywhere, or dogs, or any other pets or animals for that matter, the only animals you see in this game are bulls. There are other ominous sound effects you can hear, such as the weirdly menacing rumble of the earth, as if an earthquake is about to start sometimes. As well as the grumbling of the earth whenever you come across one of these weird roots that surface on the ground if you stand still for a while. These sound effects, disembodied or not, since they're so localized, they add life to the environment. You get the feeling there's always something happening around you off screen, even if there isn't really. It's also very reminiscent of Thief's atmosphere. And so in the atmosphere, there's always this sense that you're being watched by some unknown Lovecraftian entity. At some points during my last playthrough of this game, which I streamed, I got creeped out by footsteps approaching me from behind or from the side while I was looking at something else. There's someone behind me. Did you hear that shit? Won't even find the shotgun in this playthrough, to be honest. Oh my god. You get approached by NPCs a lot, and so that happens often. Thanks to the atmosphere, it's creepy. But the game gets really eerie when you're in a quarantine district. The ambience turns into these guttural chants, extremely threatening sounds. It sounds like there's a fucking zombie outbreak. And coupled with the visuals, the black suit in the air and the dark greenish tint, I don't know, it gives me the heebie-jeebies, dude. You know I'm desensitized as fuck to horror, the exception being when a game's sounds are so fundamentally wrong, it affects my lizard brain like Silent Hill always does. And this game is like that in these locations. When you walk into a quarantine building, you're met with these twisted visuals reminiscent of the gunk you'll see in Silent Hill 2 in the prison, and you can hear the tap, tap, tap of the infected residents' footsteps as they emerge from the darkness to grab you. It's some creepy shit that reminds me of that infamous scene from Lake Mungo. The way the figure emerges from the darkness looks a lot like how the infected people come up at you in this game. Don't touch me. No, get the things quick. Get out of here, dude. Leave. Yeah, fuck off. I played Darkwood recently, and I'm not hating on it, I really like that game, but this shit right here gave me chills, which was something that I didn't feel playing Darkwood. So I don't know, I'm cautiously optimistic about this game studio taking over the production of Darkwood 2. As for the soundtrack, there are some bops in there, for sure. The stuff that plays in your lab, in the pub, and in Lara's house, stuff's pretty good. This is all copyrighted music, by the way, so unfortunately I can't play any of it for you, but you can look up the soundtrack if you're interested. It's pretty solid. It is a sort of chill out lounge surreal stuff like Portishead as well. Stuff that goes really well with exploring a weird little town in the backwoods full of strange shit for you to see. But there's also some really primitive native music that reflect the ancient Indian culture. Not Indians from India, mind you. I'm not sure if those Indians would like this game because it has no trains they can get run over by except the one you ride to arrive in the town in the beginning. But it does have a lot of cow worshipping, so the holy Brahmins, sir. #1 game in India. Very good, sir. But all jokes aside, the further you go out of the town, the more traditional step music comes in, which makes sense, and I think the music is also more primitive on the east side of town, closer to the abattoir, which is where the rituals take place. The ancient pagan rituals of these natives, using primitive instruments like a Jew's harp, which despite its name seems to have no relation to your greedy banker who likes to charge you with a lot of interest and is your biggest fan whenever you are in deep debt. So all in all, this is all pretty cohesive sound design. So, long story short, should you play this game? Well, if you're into horror, especially the eerie kind over the outright scary kind, then I think this game is worth a try. It has a lot of dialogue for you to read, which can get tiresome, but somehow the plot is interesting enough, in my opinion. When I played this for the first time, I really got invested in the story of this little town and its residents. I really wanted to know what would happen from moment to moment, because it builds up a mystery so well that it tickles any curious mind. And the way you can help the people in this town, somehow after a while you kind of do feel like helping them. You start as an outsider, shunned by everybody, but they slowly start to warm up to you as you help fighting off the plague. There's a lot of artsy fartsy shit in this game, a lot of metaphor, but it's not pedantic, and because everything else is interesting, I don't mind it. This game knows the list of priorities, and the poetic stuff, it's an extra basically, and it doesn't forcefully shove down your throat any social commentary as far as I remember, or forced moralizing unlike some other games loved to do, to the point that it was so patronizing it bordered on insulting, so it doesn't piss me off. This game is weirdly satisfying to play. I don't know why exactly, but I think the plot is just that entrancing. So if this video got you interested, do give it a shot. As for the next videos, well, there's gonna be a Mouse PI review. Not sure about Pragmata, but if I do review that one too, then it's not gonna be timely. I don't know if I'll stream these games because I don't feel like streaming every day, and I need to finish these games quick to make a review on time. But I don't know, maybe I could stream a little bit of it and then play it on my own as well. We will see. Well, hope you enjoyed this video. It's not my best, but I needed to upload something. And so that's it for now. I'll see you later.